for 200 plus years, and we get to be alive at a time to see it fall. I believe in the power of one person working as a team with other Christian patriots can have massive impact in reversing this ungodly culture. I believe that we have an omniscient, omnipresent, and omnipotent God that has put his hand on this moment in time to deny the timeline of the enemy and is about to heal our land. This is Rick, your host, and I believe that God has called me to empower Christian patriots with truth. Join us now for the Blessed to Teach show, and let's see what God is doing today.
Jordan, and this is my brother.
And I'm Nace, and we're at the Grid Down Chowdown, and this is Larry, who is a local rancher that we've partnered with.
Now, Larry, you've been ranching for over 4 generations, is that correct?
That's correct. I'm 3rd generation, my son's 4th generation, and I've got some grandkids that are 5th generation.
Man, that's awesome.
We've been here for quite a while, yeah.
All right, now, Larry, your cattle is grass-fed, grass-finished, and pasture-raised just like God intended them to be.
Yes, because I want to know what's in that animal.
Right.
What it's been fed. And so the only way to do that is for us to keep it all natural, just like God has done it for years and years and years, thousands of years.
How has partnering up with us helped you and your ranch?
Well, it's allowed us to develop a market that we didn't have before, one that can get directly to the consumer, and that's great.
And just remember, more importantly, with every package that you buy, we put a salvation track in there. So from the bottom of our hearts, we thank you for allowing us to do what we believe that God has us here to do. And just remember, God loves you. He really does.
Amen.
Welcome! It's Rick B2T here. We're going to be empowering Christian patriots with truth the next hour and a half or so. Got a great show lined up for you because we're going to talk about what's been hidden for 6 years. We all knew this because we've been following the Q drops to understand what's going on. But China's 2020 election hack was actually in intelligence reports, and John Solomon's reporting on that right now. And so you can tell this is the D class that we've been talking about for years starting to hit, right? Who knows it would take 6 years, but they hit it for 6 years. And now it's all coming out to show that indeed that China hacked their voter rolls, right? So they had to, remember, the selection machines, they have to assign votes to fake voters. So they have to have inflated voter rolls. So when you talk about China accessing and hacking voter rolls in states, that is, this just leads to all the Venezuelan whistleblowers, what will happen in Serbia, how the servers use a virtual machine to flip the votes. We know how it's all done. It's all proven. Now it's a matter of getting to the psyche of the normies and into the news. And so is this going to all happen before November? Who knows? That maybe the near-death experience is actually having to go through Trump losing the House and the Senate before this all comes down. Hoping not. I'm hoping that this, we have massive information. We all know it. We know exactly how they stole the 2020 election. We know exactly what they did from a perspective of Venezuelan Smartmatic going to all 3 of the machines. I've talked about it in so much detail, right? This ESS, Heart, Dominion, doesn't matter what it is. They all have the derivative of the same exact chip that can do the virtual machine swapping. And they all have a derivative of the backdoor software originally developed by Smartmatic that went into Dominion, goes into these other, whether it was written in different language or whatever, it's got the same type of hooks to be able to use the inflated voter rolls to basically select the people that we haven't voted for, right? We're going to talk about the elites trying to derail Trump. And that is through this resignation of Joe Kent, like it's some type of big deal, right? It's like we knew this guy was leaking for a while. We'll be digging into that as well, and a bunch of other news I think you'll find intriguing. And we'll dig into some Q drops. It is the 17th. It's St. Patrick's Day, right? Happy St. Patrick's Day. So we got the double Q thing there with the green going on, and the 17th, and we'll do a little bit of analysis of some Q drops as well. But let's dig in right now and talk about what is going on with some breaking news here. The biggest breaking news is this Joe Kent decides to resign. You know, he's supposed to be one of the top intelligence officers of the Trump administrations. Well, they took him out of the loop because he's done so much damage, and they pretty much knew he was leaking. Why he wasn't fired earlier, I don't know. But Joe Kent resigns from Trump administration, says Israel forced U.S. into the Iran conflict, which we know is a complete lie, because Trump's addressed that multiple times. But this is what the deep state does. This is the narrative of the deep state. And unfortunately, that same narrative has hit much of our truther community. So not only, that's how sophisticated they are. That's why they call it controlled opposition. Remember, Vladimir Lenin, who basically was the evilest person to take a Christian Russia and turn it into the USSR. He said the best way to control the opposition is to lead it ourselves. So whether they're planting or paying these other influencers on the right, such as the Alex Joneses of the world, we know that he is based on the Q drops that goes up to the elites on the Mossad side, probably things. But the whole point being is that they are trying to sink Trump, and they think that this is going to derail Trump. Just not. It's not going to do it. And I'll show you some stats there too. In fact, there was a CNN report showing that 89% of MAGA support Trump's on Iran, and 9% doesn't. So that 9% is making a lot of noise, right? This is typical type stuff. And you think that, there's a huge divide in MAGA. No, there's not. That's a narrative, again, of the deep state. And Joe Kent's trying to put this narrative that Israel's controlling Trump. Right, that's the whole narrative that unfortunately many of the truthers on the right, what we call now the woke right, are putting. Retired Green Beret veteran Joe Kent has resigned from his post as director of national counterterrorism. And again, Kent said Iran posed no imminent threat. What a lie! I mean, we see the threat right now. Even after we took out 80% of their missiles, are still bombing infrastructure in all their neighbors. So they were obviously an imminent threat, not to mention the nuclear weapons and the fact that they had enough enriched uranium to build 11 bombs. They're threatening that in the negotiations. So this was refuted in multiple ways by multiple people here. Trump knew Kent was a leaker. This is an article talking about just that. He was a leaker. And one of the leakers he leaked to is Tucker Carlson. He came on Tucker Carlson's show because he was anti-Trump. Tucker's on pro-Muslim, anti-Israel, anti-Trump. That's all he does anymore. If you go look at his stuff, he does a little bit of great. He did one good thing on the chemtrails, right? But in general, it's anti-Israel, anti-Trump, and he's trying to derail Trump. So it's just really sad to see, but it's very clear that that's happening. I'll show you some other things as we go forward. But this guy says it's being reported to Fox News that President Trump knew his now former director of counterintelligence center was a known leaker and had been shut out of the White House intelligence briefings for months. He was also shut out of any and all Iran war preparations. And Tulsi Gabbard, was told he should be fired, but she never did it. Here's the reporting. And so this is a known leaker, and he was cut from out of the POTUS intelligence briefings months ago. The White House and DNI told Tulsi Gabbard he should be fired for suspected leaks, and she never did. He has not been part of any Iran planning discussions or briefings. This came out on X right now, where a senior administration official told Kent was a known leaker, just what I just read to you there. And then it says, people are saying Kent was clearly one of Tucker Carlson's sources in the government, given his multiple appearances on Tucker's show. Good riddance, scumbag. And then also a a deputy White House chief of staff, a former one, was his Taylor Budwatch, said this: Joe Kent is a crazed egomaniac who has often at the center of national security leaks while rarely, never producing any actual work. That's the way that's a spook, a CIA person right there, isn't it? He spent all of his time working to subvert the chain of command and undermine the President of the United States. This isn't some principled resignation. He just wanted to make a big splash before getting canned. What a loser, is what Tyler says about this guy. And so this whole Sarah Fields talks about it too. Joe Kent was registered as a Democrat until 2021. Kent was affiliated with the Liberation Party from 2012 to 2019, Libertarian Party. Then switched to the Democrat Party in 2019. He remained a Democrat through 2020, including voting for Bernie Sanders in the Democratic primary that year. He switched to the Republican Party in 2021. So that's what spooks do, right? Even though they show their real colors early on, and then they move over. Joe Kent is an opportunist. I could possibly appreciate his opinion and respectfully disagree with it if he had integrity and the ability to stay consistent. But it appears that Kent is nothing more than a windsock. And so here's Joe Kent saying, Iran has been after Trump since January of 2020, after he ordered the targeted killing of the terrorist of Qasem Soleimani. This isn't a new threat. The Secret Service consistently failing to secure Trump is new. So here he is talking pro-Trump stuff here, right? And now later he's saying now Trump's bad, and so he's literally talking about the threat of Iran right here in what is this? This is 24. So it's looks like that, September 2024. So listen to this. This is so, because his whole resignation letter was that Iran wasn't a threat, but here he is in 2024 saying that Iran has been after Trump since January of 2027 after he ordered the targeted killing of Soleimani. This isn't a new threat. The Secret Service is consistently failing to secure Trump is new. So he's saying that basically Trump was under threat of Iran, which we know he was, and recently. So this guy is just a complete opportunist. Hopefully you can see that extremely clearly here. Now here's the full response from, here's his little letter that he wrote to try to get, and all the media, all the left-wing media, all the elite media is reporting on this. Even Fox News is reporting on it, right? But the press secretary basically says, there are many false claims in this letter, but let me address specifically one, that Iran posed no imminent threat to our nation. This is the same false claim that Democrats and some on the liberal media have been repeating over and over. It's an elite talking point. And now remember, that elite talking point comes right into the to the Tuckers and the Candaces and every Tom Renz is doing it now. Just driving me crazy. Just everything. They're all smarter than Trump. Trump's an idiot. He's duped by all the people, and he's made all these bad endorsements and all these bad. Give me a break, guys. You don't think he has bigger plans and that you keep your enemies closer? So you're not going to be smarter than Trump. And so we need to be praying for Trump and supporting Trump, not trying to throw him under the bus every minute. As President Trump has clearly and explicitly stated, he had strong and compelling evidence that Iran was going to attack the United States first. Clearly said that. The evidence was compiled from many sources and factors. President Trump would never make a decision to deploy military assets against a foreign adversary in a vacuum. Iran is the world's leading state sponsor of terrorism. The Iranian regime is evil, and it proudly killed Americans, waged war against our country, and openly threatened us all the way to the launch of Operation Epic Fury. Iran was aggressively expanding their short-range ballistic missiles. This is so important. Just think about how much damage they're doing right now after we knocked out 80% of them. So if you give them another 6 months, they were doing 500, 600 missiles a month. So you're and building new launchers. So every week we waited, basically they were getting more and more dangerous to last longer and be able to cause a threat. So they are aggressively expanding their short-range ballistic missiles to combine with their naval assets to give themselves immunity meaning they would have a degree of capabilities that would give them immunity to hold us and the rest of the world hostage. The regime aimed to use those ballistic missiles as a shield to continue achieving their ultimate goal, nuclear weapons. Makes so much sense, does not? Is that you have so many conventional weapons and such a crazy Navy and more threats that it makes it almost impossible to knock them out. What Israel and the USA is doing is just amazing. We'll hit that in a second too. The president, though, through his top negotiators, gave the regime every single possible opportunity to abandon this unacceptable course by permanently giving up the nuclear ambitions in exchange for sanctions relief, free nuclear fuel, and potential economic partnerships with our country. Trump would have done a deal with them like he did in Venezuela, right? Venezuela go, wow, we can not be involved in drug trade and still keep our jobs and do well, right? That's why they used the current leaders to overthrow Maduro. They gave probably Delcy Rodriguez gave up exactly where Maduro was at what time, etc. But they would not say yes to peace because obtaining nuclear weapons was their fundamental goal. President Trump ultimately made the determination that a joint attack with Israel would greatly reduce the risk of American lives that would come from the first strike by the terrorist Iranian regime and address this imminent threat to the American national security interest. All of this led to President Trump arriving at the determination that this military operation was necessary for U.S. national security, which is why he launched the massively successful Operation Epic Fury. The commander-in-chief, the CIC, determines what does and does not constitute a threat because he is the one constitutionally empowered to do so. And because the American people went to the ballot box and trusted him and him alone to make such a final judgment. And finally, the absurd allegations that President Trump made this decision based on the influence of others, talking about Israel here, right? Even foreign countries, is both insulting and laughable. That's what I said. That's what I'm saying to basically all those Jew haters and all the people that think they're smarter than Trump. It's insulting and laughable. That's what it is. President Trump has been remarkably consistent and has said for decades that Iran can never possess a nuclear weapon. As someone who actually witnessed President Trump's decision-making process on a daily basis, I can attest to the fact that he is always looking to do what's best interest of the United States of America, period. America first. So she basically just refuted him in a big way. You see that Tulsi Gabbard gave one as well. Here's Trump completely discussing this as well.
Mr. President, your Director of National Counterterrorism, Joe Kent, he just resigned today. He said he can't support your conflict with Iran. What's your reaction to that? And did you?
Well, I read his statement. I always thought he was a nice guy, but I always thought he was weak on security, very weak on security. I didn't know him well, but I thought he seemed like a pretty nice guy. But when I read his statement, I realized that it's a good thing that he's out, because he said that Iran was not a threat. Iran was a threat. Every country realized what a threat Iran was. The question is whether or not they wanted to do something about it. And many people, many of the greatest military scholars are saying for years that presidents should have taken out Iran because they wanted a nuclear weapon. They were, if we didn't do the attack, or if, I'll go a step further, if I didn't terminate the Iran nuclear deal given to us, one of the worst deals ever made by Barack Hussein Obama. Remember when they sent Boeing 757s over there loaded with cash?
I love how he always brings it back to the truth of who's really empowering the deep state. Remember, they fund Israel, they fund Iran to fight each other, both sides of wars, right? That is exactly what the elites do, and trying to knock that out is exactly what Trump is going to be doing. You get knocked down on one side of it with Iran, then Israel's last. That's what Q talked about, right? Because they're still got a bunch of ugly stuff there as well. But it's not all the government. It's not every single politician. And remember, the same deep state that in the left wing part of the United States have been trying to take out Trump ever since he came out of the escalator, right? Well, those same ones are trying to take out Netanyahu. So why would the deep state try to take out somebody that's part of the deep state, right? It doesn't make any sense if you really go back and look at it. Doesn't mean he's perfect. Doesn't mean Trump's perfect. Doesn't mean Netanyahu's perfect. But they are working together to take out God's enemies. And those enemies are not just extreme Muslims. It's also this global elite that's being exposed right now. Right? Britain won't help. There's the city of London, the banking city of London, completely exposing themselves. Tulsi Gabbard basically said the same thing. Donald Trump was overwhelmingly elected by the American people to be our president and commander-in-chief. As our commander-in-chief, he is responsible for determining what is and isn't an imminent threat and whether or not to take action he deems necessary to protect the safety and security of our troops, the American people, and our country. So this is DNI, Tulsi Gabbard, basically supporting Trump and not her supposed employee, Joe Kent. The Office of DNI is responsible for helping coordinate and integrate all intelligence to provide the President and the Commander-in-Chief with the best information available to inform his decisions. After carefully reviewing all the information before him, President Trump concluded that the terrorist Islamic regime in Iran posed an imminent threat, and he took action based on his conclusion. So basically, you can see support there, truth coming right there. This is a deep state tactic to derail Trump. And unfortunately, those same talking points that the left's been screaming and New York Times been screaming and political screaming, we also have the woke right screaming it too. Candace, Tucker, many others as well. Nick Fuentes, all these crazy people that are anti-Trump. And now I see Tom Renz doing the same thing. Somebody I know and love. Just sad. They all think they're smarter than Trump. And that is not a good position to be taking. Right? That's not what the Lord wants. And again, Trump's job is not to go fight big pharma on the front and fight every chemtrails and all these things on the front line. He can't do that. He has to stay popular too, right? If he starts going on these fringe areas that 90% of the people, even though it's false, they would sink Trump. They would use that to sink Trump and his popularity, and we'd for sure lose the midterms. So we're not going to lose the midterms because Trump didn't ban all vaccines, right? Because that would actually do the opposite, as big pharma and all their money and all their campaigns would make Trump look foolish to the normies. So you got to understand this. You got to understand Trump's role. Our role is to expose the chemtrails and the vaccines. That's our role. That's different people. God assigns different tasks for different people. It's called your calling. Right? He calls you to the calling to which you've been called. That's Ephesians 4 says. Trump's called to be a president that has to stay popular. He can't attack every issue. And if you look at what the positive things he's done versus what he hasn't done, it's massively overwhelming. But you got Tom Renz and all these and the Tuckers all talking about the stuff that he hasn't done. And that is damaging. That's what's separating the truthers, at least, right? But MAGA, they're gonna stay with Trump. Okay, there's just no question about that. That's why it's 89% according to CNN, right? Here's Ezra Cohen. He was in the Q drops, and somebody a lot of these people follow. I've said it a few times before. As a political appointee, if you disagree with the president, you have a duty to vigorously argue your point in private. Once the commander-in-chief makes a decision, salute and move out. If you cannot execute the decision, you must resign and do so silently. Respect the weight of the president's responsibility, which was given to him by the people. Do not undermine his ability to carry out his responsibility as CIC. But that's what Joe Kent just tried to do. He tried to undermine Trump using the fake news media, and then he's an intelligent operator. And that derailment is not going to happen because it's just exposing the whole scheme, in my opinion. I think. All right. Let's see. Here's Queenie saying, "Oh my, there has not been one perfect person other than Christ. Amen. And this earth since inception. Abraham, Sarah lacked trust and faith. Moses questioned and therefore did not enter the promised land." There's a lot of examples, isn't there? David and Bathsheba is what I always pick up. But God used that to actually bring the baby Solomon. It's like pretty crazy when you look at it. Sick of this woke crap, says Blonde Hair. I agree with you there. Here she said, King David committed adultery and manslaughter by proxy with Saul and then Paul. How many others? Who are we to question who Father uses as his tool of choice? It's exactly right. And that includes, in my opinion, Netanyahu and Trump. They're not perfect people. They're working together. Both of them, the deep states, both tried to take out. They knocked Trump out of office. They knocked Bibi out of office. Bibi / Netanyahu. And they both came back because God wanted them in there to be able to use them for such a time as this, to basically destroy Iran, Navy, destroy their army, destroy their capability to create this forever wars, right? Because they're going to knock them out in a month and a half or less. I think that's it. So there's again some agreement, but you can disagree on chat as well. That's fine as well. It's free speech on this platform. But hey guys, this is that grid down chow down. You've seen some commercials on there, but this is what happens with. I want to show you what happens with this freeze dried stuff. It's pretty cool.
Hey guys, we got this grid down chow down, grass fed, grass finished, freeze dried raw beef, and I want to use it for dinner tonight. First step, let's rehydrate it. All right, so let's open this up. So you can see everything inside is vacuum sealed. We're gonna open that up and remove these preserving packets. So inside, this is our raw beef that has been freeze dried. Break it up into a bowl. It's really easy to break up. You just wanna break it up in a few pieces, makes the water a little bit easier to absorb as it's rehydrating. There you have it. Next up, we just need to get enough water to cover our meat. Okay, we've got 2 to 3 cups of cool water here. We're simply gonna pour it over our meat.
Use filtered water.
Until it's fully submerged. All right, it's been just over 10 minutes. You can see the blood and the fat have really come back to life, are fully rehydrated. If we grab a piece of meat, it's really tender. The next step we're gonna do is drain the excess water. All right, we just have a colander here. I'm gonna pour that water through. Now you have raw beef. All right, we're gonna use our grid down, chow down, freeze dried beef. We just rehydrated it. Let's make some tacos.
So you can go to blessedteach.com/beef. Blessed with the number 2 teach.com/beef. Guys, it's got a shelf life of like 15 years, so it's great for survival food. You're not gonna, but people are rotating it into their just normal diet because it doesn't go bad, right? So you're not going to have like when you fly out meat and you forget about it and it goes bad. That's not the way this case is. You basically are going to do it and you cook right away in like 10 minutes, right? And so it's you can see how easy that is. Get your filtered water, pour it right on it, and you have grass-fed, grass-finished. Very hard to find. You're not going to find that in a grocery store almost always, right? So if you want real healthy meat, why not get it freeze dried and serve your survival food as well? It's pretty cool. I love that. All right. So John Solomon, here it is, guys. This is probably the biggest news of the day, I believe, because it's about the 2020. It's not over yet, right? You've heard that from 107 many times. But here's John Solomon talking about what he said yesterday he was going to release.
Today we have a bombshell, something that has been kept from you for nearly 6 years. In as early as February of 2020, the United States Intelligence Community determined that China had breached U.S. voter registration data, had gained access to the data that voters used to register to vote in the 2020 election. Now,
I want to separate that, guys. Do you hear that? That the intelligence agency, we knew that John Ratcliffe had this, right? Because we've been following and we know. So for 6 years they hid this. So when we were talking about D-class, we were hoping it was going to happen real quick, right? 107 and I and everybody all thought this would happen by maybe April Fools of 2021. But God had other plans. He needed to show people what would happen with a Joe Biden administration, not tell them. And boy, did he show us, right? But now we are finding out that all this was hidden, right? All of it's hidden. And now it's finally being declassed, right? And so John Solomon got this information before it's declassed, which is kind of surprising. He talks about that right now.
remember, we've been told time and time again there were no foreign interferences in the 2020 election. But the U.S. intelligence community absolutely concluded that China had done this. They had.
Hear that? They absolutely concluded that China got into the voter rolls, right? And that's key because the selection machines need inflated voter rolls to match fake ballots to that. So they need, and that's also why they did COVID, to get all the mail-in ballots. So when you have mail-in ballots, the selection machines still have to take those mail-in ballots and then assign them to fake voters, the dead voters, the illegal aliens that usually don't vote that much. It's just that they're on the rolls because they got a driver's license, as an example, right? Or you have the fact that they need to flip the votes, et cetera. They still need all those voter rolls to understand what's going on. So they have to have all the voter roll information in Serbia, where they're doing the vote switching. And we know how they did it with the virtual machines using the Smartmatic type software, right? So it's really, yeah, he has a blonde hair saying, yeah, we knew this long ago. Those of you who've been following me in this movement, right? But the normies don't, right? They think they're told by everybody, and they believe the news because it's a controlled op of manipulation, because it's not just the fake news media, it's also their sports stars, and it's the education system. It's the most secure system of all time, right? The most secure election of all time. Complete lies by Chris Krebs. So all that psyop worked. But now finally and you can tell Trump's moving to show you that the SAVE Act won't pass. We'll talk about the SAVE Act in a second. It passed 51 to 49 or 48, I think. But it doesn't matter. It needs 60 votes because, and they should make them talk and do the filibuster, and they could run it out and they could pass it. But they're playing the game, trying to tell Trump and lie to you, think you're stupid, think Trump's stupid, that they're going to basically kill the act because of the filibuster, versus making, again, when there's a filibuster, it's not unlimited. Right? You can all the amendments, you can fill the amendment tree, it's called. There's a big, great article on that I'll put in the show notes. And then every senator only can talk twice, and they can't go to the bathroom or anything, right? So if you make sure that the legislative day crosses 6 days or whatever, this in 2 or 3 days, they would be out of people to talk, and the filibuster would be over. And then they would take a vote, 51-49. Problem is, you have Mitch McConnell and Collins voting for it now. Then they would probably vote against it, right? but they only voted for it this time because they knew that it wouldn't get the 60 votes. Right? This is your uniparty showing it, and again, that's why the D class is coming out now at the same time, so that we can wake up enough people to justify Trump doing a national emergency. And getting rid of the machines and making sure we redo the voter rolls, which might mean we even have to delay the November election. So it's going to be pretty crazy. Thanks, Blondie. Yep. Make sure you guys, that's the only way we're going to get the word out here, guys, is hit up for this, send this out. Really appreciate it. Subscribe. Make sure you subscribe as well. All right, let's continue on more of what he talks about.
Several reports involving several states. Now, we don't know this yet, because anyone in the Trump administration has declassified that information. They may soon do so. We've asked.
Isn't that weird? He's getting information and giving non-classified information out. This shows you John Solomon is the avenue for D-class, right? It used to be Sarah Carter and John. Now it's primarily John Solomon with Just the News. So he's been given the keys of the kingdom. I know a lot of people that understand this election fraud do not like John Solomon because he won't admit that it's the machines. But there's a plan, a rollout plan to let this all happen, right? And so Joel Altman's the one I'm talking about. Joel Altman met this guy and talked to him about the machines, and Joe knows exactly how it's done, and he showed people way back in 2020 how it was done, 2021 how it was done with it, and he mapped it out as an engineer and a design architect, right? And that's exactly how they're. And by the way, Let My People Go, that movie by Clement, Dr. Clement, shows exactly how they sold elections, how they do it with this big machinery of voter rolls and all of the interconnected to basically flip votes and sign fake ballots, etc. That's all well documented. And so Joel Altman was just trying to tell John Solomon that, and he wouldn't believe it, right? Because why? He's a right-left guy, I believe John Solomon is, but also he's being used for the D-class. So I think he really is surprised when he sees some of this stuff, because I don't think he's Q literate. He doesn't understand the big picture here. But anyway, pretty interesting when we really look at but he's an insider when it comes to D-class, right?
Them to, and I believe they're honestly working on it. We know this because we were able to get a document that was declassified by the Biden administration that referred to these findings in April of 2020. It is a National Intelligence Council memo. If you go over to justthenews.com right now, the story just moved a few minutes ago. You can download that document and read it yourself. Page 3, paragraph 2, a single sentence that says that China began accessing voter registration data in hopes of analyzing American public opinion in the 2020 election. Now, we have several intelligence officials confirming that this has been covered up for years. The only person ever to refer to it was the current CIA director, then the director of national intelligence under President Trump in 2020, who made reference to China's extensive intrusions on the 2020 election, accusing the CIA at the time of not paying enough attention to it. Now he's the director of the CIA, John Ratcliffe is, but you will see all of the data. There are memos, interviews, open source intelligence that will guide you to all of the facts, all on the record. It is a pretty big story. Go check it out.
So guys, this is what we've been talking about forever, right? We're not going to get our country back until we have fair elections. And we're not going to have fair elections until we get rid of the machines and redo the voter rolls. They have to both be done, and we need to count. Not only we need the SAVE Act type of things, which are national emergency, and the EO, and those have to go in hand in hand. You can't really do a national emergency that doesn't create a civil war unless you have popular support. This is why the more we wake up people, the more people understand these things. The national media is not going to report on what John's just said there, right? And John Ratcliffe talked about this. We know that China meddled in the election, and when we now that with the Venezuelan whistleblowers, you tie all this together, it'll justify Trump to do a national emergency. Now, I think they're planning on doing that before November, but we already passed the primary, so we got a bunch of rhinos in there, right? So but who knows what God does? God might have the near-death experience, the scare event, make us be more patient, right? But we know He's going to use this in a mighty way for a revival that's coming, and we can always remain ready for that. Now, Britain had a meltdown when China hacked voter files, but the U.S. intel kept it secret in America. And so this is Just the News, John Solomon. This is part of one of the articles he was referring to. This whole article just talks about how people were freaking out, but our own CIA basically hid this. We know we have rogue parts of our CIA, and sure enough, many people don't trust John Ratcliffe either. He was kind of part of it, many people think. But again, Trump is, you keep your friends close and your enemies closer. And you have to, just a good example would be when we went to Iraq, took out Saddam Hussein, and then basically fired everybody that had anything to do with that government. And they ended up becoming ISIS, right? So instead of working with some of these people that had to feed their families, and you basically created terrorists by doing that. Now in Venezuela, he did that completely different, where he started working with the current government to basically you reform yourself, kick out China, kick out Iran, the Hezbollah that was there, kick out Russia. You work with us, sell your oil through us, and that is working. And so hopefully Iran will want to have a deal and economically to thrive with the United States, with the new leaders. That's going to be, now there's a bunch of tribal issues that Iran has, so they have a lot on their hand. But the whole point here, guys, is that from this article perspective, is Chinese intelligence analyze multiple U.S. states, right? And they've redacted a lot of stuff here, but election voter registration data. And we know how critical that is for the selection machines, right? That is vitally important. And so remember, Iran was involved in this whole scheme with China and Venezuela to steal our elections through the transfer payments they do with oil. So this is not stated very often, but this isn't just about oil. This isn't about nuclear weapons. It's also about the election fraud, as these guys are Iran and Cuba are in it, just like China and Venezuela, right? And they control most of the Mexican gangs. They did anyway. So this is a big deal, and there's a bunch of information here. But that's, I see, how John Solomon got away with not talking about the classified intelligence that's going to be declassed. It was a declassed thing from the Biden administration with one sentence in there reporting what we already knew. But again, it's getting out there just slowly. Now here's him also talking about another aspect of this. Listen to this.
There are scores of raw intelligence reports that show Chinese meddling in the American election, and there's one
Now, this new one is interesting.
Report raising concern that Ukraine was engaged in a plot to do something bad in the 2024 election to help Joe Biden. I want to repeat that. There is intercepted intelligence that the Trump administration has had for many, many months, in which it is suggested by Ukrainian officials that they're going to try to help Joe Biden win the election using American taxpayer money.
So usually this is these NGOs, right? So you have these NGOs using taxpayer money, probably through USAID, that we're going to use that money to basically manipulate our elections for 2024 to he said Biden there, but that was going to be actually I think he meant Kamala if he's talking about 2024, right? If he's talking about 20, so we're looking at all these different aspects of this is quite interesting, right? Because we know 2020 they stole, but they were also trying to steal 2024. They had planned to do it. We melted the servers in Serbia, right? Remember, you can turn off the fan remotely on some of these big servers, and then it gets hot, and then you actually overclock them so it even gets more hot. It actually melts the motherboard, melts the cards in there, and so that's kind of melting the servers. That happened 2 or 3 days before the election, so that they couldn't do the steal like they did in 2020. Isn't that just beautiful? Yep. Yeah, it's a blonde hair saying, we want our dollars back. Thieves in the government. Amen. I hear you there. That is for sure. All right, let's continue. So this is to me the biggest part of the day of Ukraine trying to meddle in our elections, but again, being released at this right time. Same with the Chinese intelligence about them hitting the voter rolls. And then it's going to say, well, not only did they hit the voter rolls, they had the selection machines to flip the votes, right? And we had Venezuelan whistleblowers to talk about that. So that is going to be the big reveal. Does that happen before November? I sure hope so. Remember, happy 17th. This is a breakdown by one of the Anons war correspondents. The Q operation was planned for decades. It talks all about this. You'll see this in the show notes. I'm not going to go over in detail, but the whole point being is that the 17th is Q, and then you have the green as St. Patrick's Day, and it kind of points to Pepe the Frog. So they're talking about Happy Q Day. Is some of the Anons talking about that. And I'll just go over one of the decodes. This is Ultra Maga Dean Erickson, who also was on stage with some of the people that you probably know. But it says, we just had a huge confirmation from President Trump that he is watching us while we were at sea with LT from And We Know. So many of you know LT. He watched our show for a couple of years before he launched his, and he's just done a fantastic job. LT has. I'm trying to get a hold of the guy to come on the Faith and Freedom Network. So let me know if you guys get a hold of him. Today, while I was on stage with LT and all these other people, this is what happened. And so I'm not going to go through. I'm going to actually show you instead of reading that, show you. So here's Trump. And so they always look at what Anons do is they look at two things normally. They look at obviously what Trump's talking about. He says they're all corrupt and we have to expose them, Trump is talking about. And you can see it's a 37-second video. So that would point to Q drop 37, right? And it's also, they look at the timestamp. It was at 8:28 p.m. So that could point to Q drop 8:28, right? And since a lot of these are 24-hour military time, right? Since it's PM, that could also be the PM time, right? So they could either look at 8:28 or they could translate that up to 12 hours to be 20:28, right? That's kind of the way they do that. And so if they look at those two drops, here's 8:28. Says, stay together, be strong, get organized, be heard, fight the censorship. You, the people, have all the power. You simply forgot how to play. Together, you are invincible. They want you divided. They want you silenced. Make noise. We are with you. Make it rain. Q. So I think that's real applicable to today, guys. Make it rain. We're being censored. And that's why we did Faith and Freedom TV to get people to understand we are going to amplify the voices despite all the censorship. It's quite exciting. And then there's another one here which pointed to the length of the video, 37 seconds. And so 37 says, they are true patriots. We will never forget. Let these coming days be remembered in our history as the time we fought to recapture the republic for those evil bad actors who for so long have sacrificed the good people of this land for their own personal gain. Fight the good fight. Let justice be served. Yeah, and I think that justice I've talked about all the time. It's going to be military tribunals, Nuremberg-type military tribunals. But we have a lot of people to wake up before that can actually happen, right? There's ES saying, Happy St. Patrick's Day. Let it rain, but pour. Let it not rain, but pour. That's right. That's exactly right. What we need, don't we? As far as the Iran war goes, oh my goodness, they are taking out leader after leader after leader. These are just the IRGC military leaders who are now resting in peace. Look at these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 30 of them all gone, right? So, and that's not counting the Brazil leader that got taken out yesterday. And a lot, like 30 different commanders, and the Brazils, they're kind of the enforcers of Sharia law. And they out there that whipping people, and they also were part of the killing of at least 32,000 unarmed protesters. So, guys, this is the decline of an empire. Says Amir here, who's talking about this. This is kind of a cool graphic I thought I would show that this you'll see this was a football, as in a little soccer area that was being used by the IRC. So the IFT continues to locate and eliminate operation of the Basil unit, and you can see it was in Tehran, and they had all these Basil unit posts in Tehran, and they're attacking those as well. And this one was underneath in a football stadium. They took all them out. So it took out 30 Bajil leaders yesterday, including the head guy. And one of the key security guys underneath Khomeini also was taken out. So this war is incredibly successful. It's like the amount of bombs that have been laid, etc. Here Trump released this photo of when they took out on the island that's right next to the Strait of Hormuz, which they're trying to shut down, right? So there's a lot of pretty cool things. 2 weeks into the Operation Epic Fury, the dominant narrative has settled into a comfortable groove. So I'm reading all this because it's a pretty good article, but I'll have this in the show notes. I summarized it for you guys. So the core argument of this article is that 2 weeks into the Operation Epic Fury, the U.S.-Israel military campaign against Iran launched late February 2026, the strategy is effectively succeeding by dismantling Iran's regional power projection capabilities. And this is despite the high immediate cost of civilian casualties, economic disruptions, and the media narrative, this is the key, portraying it as a chaotic and unplanned. Like they didn't know that they were going to cut the oil supplies off, right? That was obviously something that Iran's been threatening forever, and now they're so desperate they're bombing their Arab neighbors, right? And trying to shut down and hoping that the fact that we have higher oil prices, that somehow we're not going to support Trump anymore, right? And like Trump said, higher oil prices, since we're a major exporter now, as we're in energy independent, actually brings more money into the United States, right? So it's like this is going to be a temporary thing. But the critics overlook the big picture. They focus on the short-term pain, gas, oil spikes, no clear end game, ignores the long-term strategic gains after years of prior U.S. restraint that allowed Iran's threats to build, right? It's obviously all the money that Obama gave him the whole nuclear deal that he had with them. He was basically functioning as a cabal leader to fund Iran and fund Hezbollah, which funds Hamas, which funds the Houthis, right? Completely, Trump is nailing this. So between Israel and Trump, obviously Israel did a great job dismantling much of Hezbollah with the pager and the exploding walkie-talkies and exploding motorcycles and signed attacks. And as well as the Houthis got nailed by Trump for a whole month, remember back then? And then now, and so those guys have been way less effective in their attacks. And Israel and Lebanon's being taken out as well, right? All roads lead to Obama. That's about right. Yeah, so that's interesting. Kevin says, yeah, the 4th of July has come a little early for Iran. That's about right. It says, wow, the shape of Tehran looks like a lion roaring. Oh, interesting. Hadn't really thought about that. But here's these strikes. Again, they've moved from 90% drop in the ballistic missiles. They shot 350 a day early on, and it's now to 25 a day. The drones went from 800 a day to like 75. And 80% of the launchers have been destroyed. Obviously that relates to the ballistic missiles coming way down to 25 a day from 350. And when they send them to Israel, they almost all get intercepted, 90% of them. So they're sending a lot of those missiles now to more unprotected areas of their Arab neighbors, trying to create disruption. And it's backfiring on them. Instead of that putting pressure on Trump and Bibi to stop, it's doing the opposite. They're saying, we're going to join you. I think that, so the United Arab Emirates, I think, is going to help with the Strait of Hormuz. But while you'll see Trump is attacking all our worthless allies in NATO that aren't helping. Iranian air defenses neutralized early. U.S.-Israel aircraft operate with near total freedom and local air superiority over key areas, including Tehran. Naval forces crippled. Fast boats, submarines, bases like Bandar Abbas destroyed, rendering the Strait of Hormuz threats largely hollow and self-damaging to Iran's oil exports. I mean, it's just to wipe out the defense mechanisms, wipe out their navy, wipe out their air force, and now taking out leadership right and left, and even the checkpoints for Brazil where they shut down an intersection and make sure the women all have their hijabs on, and that they're forcing their Sharia law and making sure there's no protesters, right? They're taking those out one at a time with drones. So the nuclear setback strikes hit Natanz and Fordo inoperable. Iran's stockpile of near weapons-grade uranium disrupted, delaying any bomb potential significantly. And then proxy forces weakening, decapitations, including the Supreme Leader Khamenei. Again, there's another Khamenei, not who Trump took out in his first term, but this is another key Khamenei in the IRGC. Leader was killed yesterday. Leads of fragmented, desperate responses from Hezbollah, Iraqi militias, Houthis. Gulf states block Iranian operations. And the campaign phase and outlook, remember, phase 1 was suppression of defenses, command, and missiles, largely achieved. Phase 2 targets production and hidden assets to prevent recovery. So now, again, during the 12-day war, they call it, right, Operation Roaring Lion or something like that, it was they took out a lot of nuclear scientists, and they took out a lot of the nuclear programs, as you know, and they took out many of the air defenses at that point in time and a lot of the ballistic missiles that they had, but they started recovering very fast. So that was very important that they did that 12-day war. because they didn't have nearly as many to start with, but they had upped their production. The war inflicts severe self-harm on Iran, economic isolation, oil revenue, and again, this isolation is key. The Arab neighbors now hate them, versus all of them saying, don't ever attack on Ramadan. We're going to all come together as the Shiites and the Sunnis together against the United States. Trump, by the Abraham Accords in the first term, and then doing all his work on his Board of Peace, right? And all these Arab nations join him. They all want to work economically with the United States. We have better relationships with the Arab nations than we do with the EU and NATO. It's really crazy. And Trump's been making that really clear. And again, we've created leverage for a lasting settlement. The conflict is brutal, but measurable degradation of Iran's key tools show the strategy is working, not failing, calling for better post-war planning rather than defeatist views. So this is an opinion article, but I just want to let you know that this is what I agree with. This is what is actually happening here. Yeah, there's all roads lead to Obama. That's exactly right. All right, let's continue to get into this. This is a true statement, isn't it? So, talked with my dad about last night. This Matt Couch did. It's an absolute fact. Any politician who doesn't want secure elections is most likely in office because we don't have secure elections. These are selected people. We have the Mitch McConnells, the Thunes, John Cohen. They're all selected, not elected. That's why they're going to kill the SAVE Act, which is going to give Trump the ammunition to do his national emergency. And remember, he did an EO on the voter rolls and instructed all 50 states to give their voter rolls so they could analyze them and clean them up. And most all the blue states didn't participate. So they rejected the EO. So there's ammunition for an executive order. For a national emergency is there. That's why I have to do a national emergency and an executive order. That's coming, guys. Most NATO members won't join Iran operations, Trump says. So Trump's not real happy about this at all. But I don't think he really, he basically put out a whole True Social saying that he doesn't need them anyway, right? So the European allies aren't really so much of an ally, are they? If you won't join now when it's your continent, right? Your oil that you need, and you want America to do all the work for you, right? This shows that they expect us to be there for them, but they're not going to be there for us, right? That is exactly right. So one big uniparty working against us for sure. Here's the United States has been informed, but this is Trump, right, on his True Social. Our NATO allies that they don't want to get involved in our military operation against the terrorist regime of Iran in the Middle East. This despite the fact that almost every country strongly agree with what we're doing. Now, Iran cannot in any way, shape, or form be allowed to have a nuclear weapon. I am not surprised by their action because I always considered NATO, where we spend hundreds of billions of dollars per year protecting these same countries, to be a one-way street. This is important because this is what Trump's saying. We will protect them, but they will do nothing for us, in particular in the time of need. Fortunately, we have decimated Iran's military. Their navy is gone. Their air force is gone. The anti-aircraft and radar is gone. And perhaps most importantly, their leaders at virtually every level are gone, never to threaten us, our Middle East allies, or the world again. Because of the fact that we have had such military success, we no longer need or desire the NATO countries' assistance. See, Trump is playing such a beautiful game. This is helping normies understand that our NATO, EU supposed allies are the globalists. They're the ones being run by the globalists. Obviously, Canada's run by the globalists, right? So as far as the Five Eyes thing goes. But then you move over to Europe and the EU, and you look at NATO as a whole, and and primarily the people in the EU are a bunch of globalists. And Trump says, we never did need you. Likewise, Japan, Australia, or South Korea. So he's even calling out those countries. In fact, speaking as President of the United States of America, by far most powerful country of anywhere in the world, we do not need help of anyone. So he's tightening the relationships with the Arab nations to turn against Hamas, to turn against Hezbollah, turn against the Houthis, turn against Iran. And it's working. Nobody would ever thought that was possible. Yet you're going to throw him under the bus because he didn't do exactly what you wanted on vaccines. I mean, come on, Robert Kennedy's in a viper's nest there. Quit thinking you're smarter than Trump, woke right? I'm calling out Tom Renz multiple times here because this is ridiculous. His X account has become massively anti-Trump. To jump right on board with Megyn Kelly and all the woke rights of Tucker and Candace and everybody saying that, hey, and then what's Candace saying? Don't vote. She's telling people not to vote. Give me a break. That is an enemy of the people. She's turned into, and when people say I said she was a demon before they accused everybody that said that they were getting paid. No, Candace has demons. You can see it. She's jealous of Erica. She wants to take her down now. And she said she'd stop if Erica said to stop. Erica said stop. She didn't. Right? There's the spirit of Haman and the spirit of Amalek all over Candace, for sure. And Tucker even admitted he had a demon that attacked him. Right? He never said he got rid of it. So, guys, just be careful who you're following. Get rid of NATO, says Blonde Hair. That's exactly right. Disgustingism. I don't know what that really means. It's disgustism. Whatever that is. All right, but anyway, that's just a classic post by Trump there. He warned senators who oppose the Save America Act to face guaranteed loss. He's basically saying they're going to be primaried. Murkowski voted against it. All the Democrats voted against it, and Murkowski, right? And so even though it supposedly passed 51 votes, McConnell and Collins actually voted for it because they wanted to say, see, I tried. Thune voted for it, but they're not going to do what they should do, and that is force. You can do. There's three things. Very good articles written about this that they could do to get this passed right now. Force a talking filibuster. Then extend. Don't dismiss. Make the day go 4, 5, 6 days. The legislative day. Make sure you fill up the tree of amendments, which you can do. It's done both parties many times over the years. And then this could be done in 2 or 3 days. But they're going to lie to you and say that we don't have the tools in the Senate to override the filibuster. That's a complete lie. They just don't want to do the hard work. They want to kill us because the rhinos use the selection machines too. Remember, the reason John Cornyn and Collins and Murkowski and those rhinos are there, obviously John Cornyn, is because of the selection machines, just like we talked about a second ago, right? So Trump warns these guys, dudes, we're not going to have any more rigged elections. Again, this is setting up to where the Senate's going to lie and say and John Thune's going to say, I can't do it, so I don't have the tools. And all the rhinos are going to think, yeah, we looked good. We looked like we passed the Save America Act, but the Democrats stopped it with the filibuster. We don't have time for unlimited talking and unlimited. We have a tough calendar, even though they could have done recess appointments and opened up the calendar completely. It's a bunch of lies. It's a uniparty of liars is what we have here. And so anyway, the whole point being is that this did come. And this is what Trump's saying. The Save America Act is one of the most important consequential pieces of legislation in the history of Congress and America itself. No more rigged elections, voter ID, proof of citizenships, no rigged mail-in voting. We are the only country in the world that allows this. No men and women's sports, no transgender mutilization of our children. 99% issues all. Only sick, demented, or deranged people in the House or Senate could vote against the Save America Act. If they do, each one of these points separately will be used against the user in his or her political campaign for office. A guaranteed loss. Get your senators, Republicans or Democrats, to vote yes on the SAVE Act. I will never, ever endorse anyone who votes against Save America. Thank you for your attention to this matter. And so that may have helped push this to over the line where you see it. Now they're going to use the excuse of we can't have unlimited debate, which is a lie, because you could just do what I said, make sure the legislative day is multiple days, and force every senator to come and talk twice until they have to go to the bathroom. and it's hard for them to do it for so long. Because remember, there's only, 47 of them? And then they can do it twice, 96, right? And they can talk for only so long. And so you really put the pressure on them, extend it. You could get this done in 2 or 3 days. You have to fill the amendment tree as well, but you can do that. Both sides of the House do that. Interesting. So here's the vote.
This vote, the yeas are 51, the nays are 48. The motion is agreed to.
48 to 51.
The chair lays before the Senate the following message.
Save Act pass.
Resolved
in the Senate
that the bill from the Senate S 1383 entitled an act to establish the Veterans Advisory Committee.
So what this 51-48, a motion delay before the Senate, the House message to the SAVE Act. So this is I believe this was the SAVE Act. And then some people are all excited this passed, but they've already shown their cards. They're saying, no, we don't have 60 votes, right? Show Trump we don't have 60 votes and hope he's stupid enough not to understand that we could fill the amendment tree and we could make the talking filibuster happen, right? But they'll vote against doing those two things and allow it to die because they want to act like they're Republicans when they're not. That's what RINO means. Republicans in name only. That's Thune, that's Corn, that's McConnell, that's Collins, that's Murkowski. Very, very obvious what the Uniparty is doing. Decoupling from China on critical minerals must be a national security priority. No question about it. Trump is all over this, but it's real scary if you look at some of what happens. 90% of the critical mineral processing is controlled by Chinese party. We've been our eye off the ball completely when it comes to these rare earth minerals that are so important for so many things that are in your iPhones and your computer chips and data centers that are going to be so key because energy is going to be so key. That's why Trump is all over this doing rare earth deals, getting control of Venezuela is going to be real key for that. But there's many other of them that were yet 80% of cobalt, as an example, is controlled by the DRC, it's produced in the DRC in mines primarily owned by the CCP. So this is why this really is CCP was about ready to destroy America by killing us from within with the color revolution and all these other ways they had. And you can see the cobalt and many other things. So Trump is all over this, and it's something that taking out Iran with the transfer payments for the election machines and also the threats they could have allow us to fight this battle. And John Solomon has an article here about breaking the worst latest ICE roundup nabs murderers and pedophiles. So it's continuing. He's still deporting people, not as fast as we probably want, but it's really focused on the criminals so that when the Antifa / BLM or the what they call the sleeper cells are called into action, our National Guard will take care of it quickly without massive civil war, because that's what they're going to try to do, is have a civil war if Trump does a national emergency, as an example, on the elections. Teamsters back Trump GOP effort to crack down on deadly illegal immigrant truckers. They get these commercial driver's license, CDLs they call them. And Katie Backstage has talked a lot about this, showing how many of them are illegal aliens. Can't even read the signs, can't speak English. And that's great that we have the Teamsters actually kind of switching sides a little bit. A lot of them voting for Trump to get us over. This is part of why we are seeing the wake up of America. It's beautiful. Comer subpoenas Pam Bondi over the Epstein files. So here we have Comer actually bringing in Pam to beat her up over the Epstein files. So that's real interesting. So there's a lot of people thinking Pam Bondi's bad and her team's bad, and maybe are. But again, if Trump is smart, which I believe he is, and called, and he's listening to doing things God's way versus his way, all these people are going to be outed as you keep your friends close and your enemies closer, right? And you actually expose them. That's what he did to Fauci. That's what maybe he's doing that to Pam, or maybe Pam's realizing and trying to set up and expose the fact that we have to go to military tribunals because our courts are completely captured operations from radical Democrats like Boasberg, as an example, right? Democrat candidate refusing to support Hakeem Jeffries as failing the House leadership. So there's a big battle here. If he does win the House and goes for impeachment, he might not be the majority leader, which would be kind of funny. But I think Trump knows that scenario of him getting impeached might happen in the Senate now with all the rhinos. So that's why I think all this is going to happen before November. If it doesn't, this means that might be the scare. That might be the time that we go, okay, our country's over. Trump is going to be impeached. We're done with, right? That's one way we're going to wake up a lot of people is a scare event, whatever that is, or we're going to go into a nuclear war. What is that scare event going to be? We just need to know what God wants us to do day by day and act on it. Find what your calling is, use your authority in Christ, listen to the Lord, and do what he says. And if all of us do that, there's no way we can lose, right? It's like Romans 8:31. If God is for us, who can be against us, right? Okay, this is the craziness of the liberals. This is a girl acting like she is. She identifies as a dog. Here she is. If you want to identify as a dog, that's what's going to happen to you. I'm going to show that one more time because it's funny. Probably shouldn't identify as a dog, right? So that's the craziness that we've got mental illnesses all over the place because of the enemy of the people, the mainstream media, right? That's a really important thing that we need to understand. There it is. Can't even see it. Here's Elon Musk. What I've learned that the legacy media propaganda is very effective at making you believe things that aren't true, like you're a dog, right? And that's, I think, an important point.
Divisive figure 2 years ago, but now you really are. I mean, there are people who love you, but there are a lot of people who dislike you, some of whom were your customers. And I wonder, was it worth the undertaking at Doge and everything else that you've done and how outspoken you've been in terms of the things you believe in to antagonize so many potential buyers and or users of things like a robo-taxi?
Well, I mean, unfortunately, what I've learned is that legacy media propaganda is very effective at making people believe things that aren't true.
What would an example of that be?
That I'm a Nazi, for example.
Right.
And how many legacy media publications, talk shows, whatever, try to claim that I was a Nazi because of some random hand gesture at a rally where all I said was that my heart goes out to you, and I was talking about space travel.
Yep. Very good point. And so that's why I'm in the fight, guys. You know, I know God's called me to expose the Mockingbird media, right? So he talks about, and when I talk about my calling, it's to be a truth teller, equiper of the saints, and the amplifier of his people's voices. So that's why I bring people on the show. That's why I interview tons of people and amplify them. And that's why we have Faith and Freedom TV to actually amplify it. faithandfreedom.tv. If you want to go see all the great people we have on that we're amplifying their voices. And here we go. Here's President Trump on the national championship. He posted this. This is way back in January, but it just shows the applause he got. So you see there's no applause there. There's a longer version of that, but the whole point is he posted that just today. No MAGA is not divided on the Iran war. Trump supporters remain loyal, even if they are a few loud dissenting voices. And so this is a whole article on that you'll have in the show notes. Remember, it's free show notes. You get a summary of the whole show, plus every single thing I showed you here. So make sure you go to blessedteach.com right there, blessed2teach.com. Just sign up on the front page, and you'll get everything that I show you. But it's like 89%, one of the latest CNN polls, of MAGA are with Trump. Right, and 9% are against him on this, and those 9% are very loud. Right, that's the point I think of that whole article. Here's Alexander Dugin, is a Bolshevik, fascist who seeks to destroy the West through destabilization from within. So this guy says he hates the West. He's trying to destroy the West. He's an elite from Russia, but he's been interviewed by Tucker, right? And in his recent public appearances, he said, "Hey, we've got a lot of momentum on what I'm doing," and he actually names Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, Alex Jones, Judge Napolitano, how you ever say that, Larry Johnson, Jackson Hinkle, Kim.com. So he named people that are helping him, right? So if you want to know who the woke right is, he gave a good list, right? Dugan is completely demonic, hates the West, hates Christianity. It's important. Alex Jones, Greenwald, Tucker Carlson have all held friendly interviews with him and praised him as a philosopher. Ask yourself, why would anyone who claims to love the West and the United States, who claims to be America first, find an intellectual ally in someone who explicitly declares, I want to destroy the West? And yet, people are mad at President Trump that posted his support for Mark Levin over these American-hating lunatics. So, you know, Megyn Kelly attacked Levin. A lot of people are attacking Levin because he's speaking up for Israel. It's time to wake the people up, right? And so, but you can see this Dugan guy being interviewed by Tucker. And
finally, we come to Alexander Dugin, an ideologue at the heart of Russian extremism, who views the West as an existential threat to Russia and the world at large.
The West must be eradicated. The Western liberal globalist elite must be completely wiped off the face of the earth, or it will wipe out humanity. Once this problem is resolved, we can move on to other issues.
So just want to make sure everybody understands who Dugan is, and these are the type of people that are on the woke right they've all become anti-Trump. That's the most important thing to understand that. And they're trying to basically do what the elite does, become controlled opposition so that we don't vote like Candace would say, or even vote against Trump, right? That's what they're trying to do, to get him impeached. That's the globalist plan. They have to get him impeached because they're getting destroyed right now. It's official. Grok finally admitted I was wrong, and I mean, it was wrong and I was right. Remember, Grok's trained on big pharma, right? But once you start asking it questions and feeding it data, the record level data shows that the COVID shots didn't save any lives. And the whole conversation he'll show you here, he actually used Claude as well to basically get the AI trained. We can help train these AIs by giving them great facts and talk about the fact that they need to quit reading so much big pharma stuff. we can make that happen. And so no data set in the world shows I'm wrong. The Steve Kirsch is a great to follow if you want to understand the evil of the big pharma and the whole vaccine scam. Wendy Rogers, here's John Solomon saying, breaking U.S. intel holds secret evidence. China accessed American voter registration files as Senate weighs new election security laws. And Wendy Rogers from Arizona saying, surprised? Not surprised. That's for sure. I thought that was funny there. All right, guys. Again, go check out griddownchowdown.com or just go to blessedteach.com/beef. That's probably a little easier. Blessed with the number 2 teach.com/beef. Get your freeze dried for 15-20 years shelf life, but also rotate it into your food. You love this meat. It keeps all its nutrients. Freeze drying does not take any of the nutrient out, and then the tenderness, and it's free. It's grass fed and also grass finished. So grab some, try some of this. You guys will love it, I promise you. I have some of this in my cabinets now, and again, it won't waste, even if like if you accidentally thaw something out and it goes bad. That's not going to happen. So it's worth the extra cost not to have it not have to be refrigerated and still have this 15-year shelf life. I love that stuff. It's great. Hey, with that, guys, we're going to call it a night, and we'll be back in tomorrow with not only the show, but also followed by Word and Worship. We're going to go on day 2 of talking about how we apply the book of Esther to our times now. It's a really important time because that spirit of Amalek and spirit of Haman is everywhere. And the spirit, and we just went over chapter 1 on Sunday. We'll be going over chapter 2 on Wednesday night with word and worship. And then praise and prayers Thursday night. God bless you all. And we'll talk to you guys soon. Bye-bye.
Elitist media deceives, but Faith and Freedom TV amplifies truth. Our world-leading platform delivers news, teachings, worship, movies, and music rooted in biblical values and constitutional patriotism, inspiring faith and liberty. We inspire, equip, and amplify Christian patriots to share powerful stories of faith, family, and freedom. With live events, thousands of on-demand videos, and access on Roku, Fire TV, Apple TV, Android, and iOS, we're transforming culture globally for God and country. New content is coming to ignite faith. Join our mission to counter deception. Visit faithandfreedom.tv and download the Faith and Freedom TV app today.